Next to me is the Mercedes AMG GTR. It's Mercedes' answer to the Porsche GT3RS. Now, it's a tall order competing with the tried and true track king, but Mercedes has done that and more. Whereas the SLS and the SLR were fun in a straight line and for cruising down PCH, they left something to be desired in terms of their handling feel as well as their on-track performance. Well, Mercedes wanted to fix that with the AMG GT line, and this is a GT turned up to 9. Under the enormous hood of the GTR is a 4-liter twin-turbocharged V8. The GT3RS has a 4-liter engine, but it is a naturally aspirated flat 6. The power on this thing, well, there's lots of it. 577 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque. That's the advantage of twin turbos over the naturally aspirated setup. The Porsche only makes 346 pound-feet of torque, although that does whale to 9,000 RPM, so can't complain about that too much. Note the position of the engine as well. Yes, we have this carbon fiber cover here, but the actual location of the engine is behind that. So it's behind the front wheels for better weight distribution. The fact that this car is all about track times almost blows my mind. I can't believe this is a Mercedes, but I'm so glad that it is. The AMG GTR is absolutely menacing. This large hood that feels like it's longer than a bowling alley and these bulging fenders in the front and rear give it a presence that the GT3RS just doesn't have. Sure, the GT3RS, in my opinion, is one of the best looking Porsches ever made and one of the best looking cars in general, but it just doesn't have the stance that this GTR has. No reason why they call it the beast of the green hell. Well, the actual reason they call it that is its unreal Nürburgring time of 7 minutes and 11 seconds. For reference, that's 10 seconds faster than a 991.1 GT3RS and 11 seconds faster than a Ferrari 488. And the 488 will cost you over $100,000 more than this car. Come around to the side and just look at the gorgeous, sculpted, muscular body lines of the AMG GTR. This actual car is finished in AMG Green Hell Magno, a perfect name for a color, which is a $9,900 option. That being said, it's actually reasonable considering how good the satin finish on this looks. And then when you think of the price per dollar, the actual MSRP of this car is $157,000 as a base price. The amount of performance you're getting for that is unbelievable. Now we've got 3 different wheel options, the most expensive of which will only cost you an additional $500. That's almost unheard of in the supercar realm. Normally prices are $5,000 for an upgraded set of wheels, but that is what makes this AMG GTR so special. From the rear 3/4 angle, you truly grasp how wide the AMG GTR is, and these massive fender flares hide one of its ultimate party tricks, rear axle steering. Now, a lot of cars nowadays come with rear axle steering, and it makes an enormous difference. What that means is the front wheels at speeds below 62 miles an hour turn in the opposite direction of the rear wheels. Yes, that's right, these actually turn a little bit. When they turn the opposite direction at low speeds, it increases the agility of the car, makes lane changes quicker, and also makes it feel lighter on its feet. Then at high speeds, the rear wheels turn in the same direction as the fronts, virtually enhancing the wheelbase and making it a lot more stable at those higher speeds. Pretty cool. Around back, you'll notice the AMG GTR has one of the most unique exhaust systems on the market. It actually has 3 main pipes. Sure, we have a quad exhaust layout, but one pipe goes to the center of the vehicle where these dual tips are, and the other 2 go to the left and to the right. The AMG GTR produces one of the best sounds I have ever heard from a V8, and honestly, any car in general. Part of that is due to the fact that they use titanium silencers for the left and the right exhaust. It gives it a very unique tone down low. Honestly, it sounds a bit like a Bugatti Chiron when you're in the right part of the rev range. But honestly, why don't you just listen to the way this thing sounds? The The rear diffuser is incredibly cool looking, obviously produces loads of downforce, but I love the fact that they used a little bit of carbon fiber around the exhaust, perhaps for heat reasons, and the rest of it is this painted gloss black. Now we move up to the giant carbon fiber wing that's manually adjustable and hides away low enough on the body so it doesn't obstruct your view whatsoever. There's carbon fiber all over this car. They wanted to keep the weight down because of the additional weight added by the rear wheel steering. Of course, the massive engine as well. Note the carbon fiber roof too. I gotta say, special thanks to Alejandro for letting me review his car. I left my E63 at his place and he said that if I didn't plug his new app in exchange for driving this, that he'd spray paint my car pink. So here we go. This idiot is giving away $2,000 this week to a player who plays his new app, Fantasy Crypto. It's free to download. I've got a link in the description below for iOS and Android. You get to invest in cryptocurrency, learn all about it without using your real money, and then potentially win actual real money. On the inside, the cabin of the AMG GTR is absolutely stunning, as well as driver focused. We've got a plethora of Alcantara, leather, contrasted stitching, and carbon fiber. I love the way this satin finish carbon fiber looks. I feel like gloss carbon fibers are getting a little bit played out, so this is a nice change of pace. In the center console here, we have a range of 4 buttons arranged into a V. There's 4 on each side, and that's done on purpose. It's supposed to signify the fact that it has a 4-liter V8. Actually, I made up the part about the 4-liter, but that actually makes a heck of a lot of sense. So on the left side, we've got buttons for the start-stop. We've also got the traction control button. I'll talk a little bit more about the traction later. Button for the suspension. There's 3 different settings on that, as well as some volume controls to switch it into manual, the start-stop feature, and the loud exhaust button. Although when you're in Sport, Sport Plus, or Race, you don't need the loud exhaust button, and you should always drive with it on loud exhaust. Speaking of the traction control, this has a racing-inspired 9-stage traction control. Most supercars nowadays have 2 or 3 levels, whether it's fully on, partially off, and fully off. Well, this has 9 levels of it. If you press and hold the traction control button to turn it all the way off, then it activates this little dial here in the center of the dash. If you turn it counterclockwise, you turn the traction control all the way off. If you turn it clockwise, it goes slightly back on, but there's 9 different levels to play with. So if you're out on the track and you're slowly building confidence with the vehicle, you can turn the traction control less and less and less until it is a ridiculous tire smoking machine. Although with these Pilot Sport Cup 2s on it and the weight distribution, I haven't really been able to spin the tires at lower speeds. I'm sure if you mash the gas and turn the steering wheel hard, it can do crazy burnouts, but the level of mechanical grip this thing truly has is astronomical. Now, one of my major gripes with the AMG GTR is the actual position of the gear lever here. You kind of have to bend your arm like a T-Rex. You also have to make the T-Rex noise. It says that in the owner's manual. Other than that though, the AMG GTR feels nearly perfect. There's a massive amount of space in the rear, and we have tons of cargo space. You could absolutely daily drive this thing with the amount of storage and just how comfortable and luxurious it is in the interior as well. And then when you put the car into race mode, there's 5 different settings. We've got individual, which you can customize to your liking, comfort, sport, and sport plus, but we're gonna put it in race because we're in a canyon. It becomes a full-fledged supercar. The acceleration of this thing, unbelievable. 0 to 60, 3.4 seconds. The quarter mile in 11.4. It would be a lot quicker than that if it was all-wheel drive, but honestly, I'm glad that it's not. Now, that rear-wheel steering has a massive effect on how this thing handles in the corners, and those brakes, oh, found a ball. Not sure what that is. We have a choice from a tiny bit smaller steel brakes, and then you can also get the ceramic composite brakes. Either are gonna work just fine in this thing. We've got a 7-speed, oh wow, I'm in love with this, double clutch transmission. Interestingly, they didn't put the 9-speed from the new generation of cars. And the calibration of this is absolutely perfect. It really does feel almost as fast as the Porsche PDK system. And that's not something you would ever say about a Mercedes. Sure, the SLS was a bunch of fun, but that 7-speed DCT just didn't feel all that quick when you were manually shifting through the gears with the paddles. These paddles, the actuation of them feels fantastic. They're located at 9 and 3 in the perfect position. We've got this gorgeous flat bottom steering wheel, and the initial turn in when you're below 62 miles an hour, due to that rear wheel steering, I can't believe this is a Mercedes. I really can't. This is one of the best cars I have ever driven, and I am freaking in love with this. It's got the same transmission as the AMG GTS. However, first gear has been lengthened. It's an interesting strategy. Normally you'd think you'd shorten the gear and improve the acceleration, but actually they lengthened it so that you can ride out the gear even higher and be in first gear at low speed corners on the track. I imagine that had something to do with calibrating this at the Nürburgring. Now, 2nd through 7th gear have been shortened for better acceleration. I don't know what they've done to this car, but they have transformed it into an absolute monster, but not in the way you typically imagine a Mercedes to be. Sure, it can still smoke the tires and it's bat crazy in a straight line, but it's also a monster around turns. And not just with a professional driver that it feels wild, but it can still corner quickly. No, even if you are just an amateur with some track driving experience, you feel like you can get the most out of this thing, and it just feels so fun around each and every corner. I don't really want to spend $200,000 right after this review, but at the same time, I really, really do. For a stock exhaust, you do not need an aftermarket system on this. The crackles, I mean, you can't tell me that sounds like it's forced induction. I don't understand why companies like McLaren and even Ferrari can't make their twin turbocharged V8s sound as good as this. It's honestly a work of art. The spoiler on the back is manually adjustable, as are the coilovers. Not only can you change the firmness, but you can also change the ride height on this thing. So if you want to lower it a little bit, you can without having to get an aftermarket coilover setup. And I think that is really cool. I'm sure they fine-tuned this to nobody's business to ride just perfectly on the unpredictable Nürburgring, but you can set it up however you want. In the front, we've actually got an active splitter that opens and closes depending upon speed as well as engine temperature to allow for additional cooling for the engine and also to change the aerodynamics of the front of the car. However, the majority of the downforce comes from the wing and the rear diffuser. I'll be honest, the infotainment setup on this car feels very dated. In fact, it looks exactly like the unit on the SLS does from 2011. But on a vehicle like this, it really doesn't matter. If they can save some cost by using an old generation here and put that money back into the vehicle elsewhere, I think that was the right decision. I'm also in love with this contrasted yellow seatbelt. Whew. That looks good. The AMG Gtr weighs 3,650 pounds. That's quite a bit more than the GT3RS, but it doesn't feel any heavier. The vehicle feels a bit bigger in its dimensions, mostly because of the somewhat cocooned environment that you feel like you're in and just your position of the steering wheel and your seat in relation to the front of the car. But in terms of agility, this thing turns on a dime. I think the ultimate test of any car, no matter how good and how exciting it would be, is would you actually spend your own money on one? Hopefully there are viewers watching right now that have the means to buy an AMG GTR, and I'm pleased to report I would 100% spend the money on this car. Reason I'm not getting one, I already bought the E63. I'm partially regretting that after driving this. I don't really need the rear seats, and there's plenty of space back here for my camera gear. This would have been the ultimate daily driver, and I have something else in the works that's coming to the channel. But man, oh man, is this thing fantastic. Is it better than a GT3RS? That is the question that Mercedes was hoping to answer, and hoping that the answer was yes. Well, it's very different than a GT3RS. We've got a 7,000 RPM redline in this. The GT3RS has a 9,000 RPM redline. This is twin turbo, has a ton of power, the GT3RS is naturally aspirated and sounds a bit better. This, in my opinion, looks better. It's significantly more comfortable. It is way more practical than the GT3RS, and it's just as fast around the track. Although the new 991.2 RS just set a Nürburgring lap time of 6 minutes and 56 seconds. That car, however, with options and the markup it's going for right now, will cost you substantially more than the GTR. That being said, if I had to pick one or the other, at this point, it's honestly a coin toss. That's how good this car really is. It's totally different than a GT3RS with the same mission. Go around the track as fast as possible and still be an incredibly fun road car all at the same time. And with that, I absolutely love the AMG GTR. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. If you did enjoy it, smash that thumbs up button. Leave a comment about what your favorite aspect of the AMG GTR is. I look forward to seeing you next video.